My childhood to describe fully is not possible. Mostly I remember my dear mother passed away in Sydney. She survived the war in Budapest Ghetto. And she told me things which I didn't know. For instance, when she got married, she only got pregnant 18 months after marriage. And that was a catastrophe because my dear fathers were one of the 11 children, and he had older sisters who didn't get married yet. They were teasing her that she's not a good woman under these circumstances. Also, Pesach the Seder, all the women, the married women, came and brought the matzah balls with them, and all they cooked for the husband, and everybody tried. And she was teased that her matzah balls were too soft. And that was the worst thing that happened, because those days, what else did people have? And she was very close to her parents. But I'm going back to my when I was 4, I went to Cater. Those teachers were not teachers who were trained to do things. The teachers they gave them class not to support him because he had no parnosa. Like the very poor people in our town used to sell shoelaces at the railway station from a tray, walking up and down. How can you make a living at it? That was the last try. So the community supported was in every way. For instance, for matzah they didn't pay. The community bought the matzah, added 10% for people who paid, and couldn't pay, they got it free. Yeah. And these people were completely out of the world. I mean, to give a man who is desperate, who is hungry, give a class of children of 4 or 5, and they were beaten all the time. Particularly if their wife got pregnant. He knew the wife is pregnant and he was very nervous. He already had 6 or 7 in one room, and still keep him, and then they were now. When we went to public school, the state school at 6, you could already read and write from the paper. That they could teach. But Jewish history was not known to them. And you go in a class with non-Jewish children who know nothing about reading, and you can write, that causes anti-Semitism. Not only with the children told their parents at home, but the teacher herself. There was a teacher, lady teacher, who couldn't teach us because we already knew. And Shabbos, there was also a school we had to go, but we didn't write. The rabbi is a very powerful man in that sense. He went to the management of the school and he fixed it. Okay, the children will go to school. In that case, before we went to school Shabbos, we had our own minyan. I mean, we were children, but the minyan was put together with adults for us, for Shachris, Shabbos. And we came home at 12 o'clock. We didn't go home to have lunch. We went to the Beis Medrash, and there were 10 adult men waiting for us for Musaf and line and everything. I was about 6 or 7. Rosh Hashanah, I didn't go to shul. I had high fever and I was in bed. The shofar came to me after coming to blow the shofar for me. Can you imagine the environment that we lived in? And we believed in it so 100%. And it was very, very painful after what has happened. You know, I'm surprised that I could manage my thoughts together to see. In the camp, just a few days before liberation, I jumped now, I had a very good friend, also saw from he lost his tefillin, but he still davened every morning. And I said to him, look, when I saw like this, I said to him, jokingly, I'll go in a trefe restaurant and I eat a whole pig together. I want to run the fat down. That was my body's desire. And I said, pig. I said, Chater. He said, do you expect to survive if you're already sinning before? And I said it. I said the way I felt. But he did. Next day he was there. Well, the boys just got it up. There was, nobody cared. I had another very good friend who was together. He was always worried about his mother. She was already dead in Auschwitz long time ago, but we didn't know that. And one morning, it was middle of the night, I woke up and his head was on my chest. That he wanted that human warmth before he died. He didn't wake me up, he just put his head on my chest. And it was very heavy and that woke me up. Then I had to take him to a very big hall that was dug for dead people. And I dragged him because nobody would help, nobody had the koyach. I did his 2 feet and I dragged him on the ground to the hall, to this one. Also, the people were so devoted in the hope that we can rely on them. Like I was very thin and anemic when I was and my grandparents lived in a mountainous village. So when it was school holiday, the public school holiday, my mother said to my father, let's send Shani to my parents. Change of environment, change of air, mountainous air. He'll eat better, he'll gain a bit of weight. My father said, I would like to do that, but until the rabbi say he'll miss Cheder. This is very painful to do like that. And will you stop it now? So, just for me a little bit of grandfather was very close to me. My dear mother's father. He died at 56. He had high blood pressure and didn't believe in doctors. So when he was dying, he was screaming, get the Malachamuvas out from here. And nobody said, let's get the doctor. Everybody was davening. And he was screaming. And I had to hold him down till he died. And go back a year or two, I went with him to a funeral where his friend died. And his friend, when he was buried, he threw a stone into my grandfather in the grave. And he was moving his lips. And I didn't hear what he said, but at home I asked him, why did you do that? He said, because Mr. Friedman was a very good friend of mine. And he'll miss me in the other world. So I threw the stone in the grave to notify him that all friendship is over. This is how we live. And also where my grandfather lived, they didn't have a rabbi or a shofar. There was, from a neighboring village, there was a rabbi who went, had 5 or 6 villagers to look after. And he stopped a day and took the children out of this. A year later, he told the Chumash Rasha and then Mishnah, because he didn't stay there. He just went and that was Shvere Panosa, that wasn't easy. But I have written in my book that when I was 11 I had typhoid. And that was 1933 when Hitler came to power. And in a hospital I was together with adults. There were about 20 or more typhoid sick people, and every morning, when they died, they came to, and they carried them on a small stretcher, and their hands are hanging down, the dead people, and a boy of 12. So I was very frightened, and one boy told me, so what? You better if you die now. When Hitler comes, he'll kill you all. And that was in 36. Why we stayed there, I don't know. Well, I do read a lot about Polish pogroms and all that. The Tatars, about 17th century, went to village and realized, why kill them? They took them to Turkey and sold them as slaves. And in Holland, they were well-to-do Jews then, and they bought them up because, you know, as slave you have to go, but even if it's the last slice of bread, you have to free a slave. So they went and freed them. And where did they go? They went back to Poland. They were in Turkey, so close to Palestine. They were in Turkey, and this is what happened to them. And also many people don't know that the war broke out in 1st of February, 1st of September, just before Rosh Hashanah. And many American Jews, Polish origin, went to visit their relatives for Rosh Hashanah and people were stuck there. The American passport wasn't any good to anybody. Well, also, I was not a good student. I mean, there are good students and bad students. And my favorite, I think I told you my favorite from a rebbe. First, we went every Friday afternoon in the mikveh. Children, everybody. And the rabbi knew. If somebody didn't go, he knew. And when we played as children in the yard, he spoke Hungarian, because that was in that village, the Hungarian language was. And then he caught me once, he must have been in a bad mood, nearly tore my ear off and gave me a giveaway. He said, "Red is Polish, red Yiddish." I told you, didn't I? No? For him, there were two languages in the world. No, Yiddish and English. And I had one brother who is here with me, is very sick now. He ran away after beating like that, never went back. I don't know what happened after. But then I went to Sadertor and Talmetor. He came with me. He's 4 years younger. I was his guardian. I have learned a lot of this. I mean, not willingly. But what I am with is, the other children have skis and go in the snow and play in winter. That was very fashionable. And I had to go to Cheder. I had to go at 6 o'clock to daven and go home for a black coffee, which was only, color was black, but didn't taste like coffee, with a slice of bread. And they played, and then I have to go 8 o'clock or 8:30, I go to school. I mean, that was so unfair, my bringing up. It does worry me now. But if I tell somebody who was the same, he said, that was the system we were born into. My mother and father never met before the engagement party. My father was in the First World War. He survived the first one. And he came home, he was 25, and somebody in the family said, I know a girl who in Revuca was the village. So he made money on it. So much is being done. How do you say English? Dowry.
Dowry.
And a certain percentage belonged to him. And he described my mother. But then she came once Shabbos to actually, I think I write it too. She wanted to look good, but she was the fattest. And she bought a frock she didn't buy it, neighbors made it, which was terribly tight, thinking that she looked thinner. But that was, they didn't know that. Actually, I have a picture of her. And over Shabbos she was there with her mother, and they decided when the engagement will be. And the money was given to the Rebbe before the chuppah, and after the chuppah he handed it over to the person or to his father. People didn't trust each other. But the Rebbe had I don't think it was power, it was fear that he's connecting us with God. I must tell you this is a very good Rebbe story. Because I'm a public speaker, and I use this and it's very successful. So Ayed goes to Rebbe to ask him, what should he do? He has bad luck, he can't support his family. He tried everything. He tried even because he once learned the Torah, Meshanem Opa, Meshanem Mazel. You know what that means? To change your house, go live there, then your muzzle will change. But actually that means your attitude. Don't hammer the same thing which you are not successful. Try something else. He tried. Didn't work. Then he didn't work. Then the rabbi said, after Shachris, invited him for breakfast, and so he went because poor bastard was hungry. And there was after the hand washing and all that ceremony, he was given a slice of bread and butter, which was a rarity for him, and put on a very thick layer of butter because he was hungry and wanted to make use of the situation. And as he picks up the slice of bread to eat, he drops it. And the slice of bread falls to the buttered side on the, because this Earth's gravity, the heavier side. He says to the Rebbe, you see Rebbe, this is mine. Had it fallen up other way, I could have just dusted it with blown it and eat it. But now the butter picked up all the rubbish and all the dust. The rabbi said, this wasn't bad luck, this is your own fault. And the man said, why? He said, because you buttered the wrong side. I think that's very funny. I think he had no other answer. He didn't know what Earth's gravity is. Fortunately, he was an angel on Earth, honestly, and such a tragic thing. And they were taking in ghetto. He had a retarded child. But she was in her research already when the ghetto was established. And just to keep them somebody to look after that woman, they chained him to his daughter. Until they got to Auschwitz, he was chained together. Now, a Rebbe, his own daughter, had to clean her. She couldn't clean herself. How else can you punish people? I'm asking God to do to a Rebbe to dish out such a punishment. And that's what happened. And they both went together in gas too. But until then, that took at least 6 to 8 weeks. So here we go. Then, when I got a little bit older, my father said, well, the clouds are very dark in heaven. You have to do something. You have to do in a trade. So I became a glazier. I found a Jewish man who employed me as a glazier. And there was another rabbi. And he called me, I wasn't Michal Shabbos Befresie, you know, but I wasn't so from. And he called me in and he said, I know you, Rabbi, and I know where you come from. You are living not a from life. The Rabbi Nerov already. How did he know that? So he said, you went to yeshiva with your grandfather, so tzaddik and all that. And he called me, and I did promise him that I'll turn around, but I didn't keep that promise. A bad conscience about it still. I mean, what was his business? I mean, I was like a, what do you call here, apprentice, and I couldn't wear pious like that and all that, you know. Keep I always wore to my Jewish boss, who was very angry about it. But the boss was angry. It's not good for business. When we lived in a Goyish country, and like for instance, we had a milk bar. They gave us ice cream, had kosher ice cream, Shabbos without money. And most of Shabbos we went to pay for it. Well, then I was 21. All the young men went to soldiers to become soldiers, properly became, but not the Jews. They went to working camps. That meant they took us in the front, in Poland, and in daylight they had to carry food and ammunition to the Hungarian soldiers on the side of the hill. And from there they just shoot us like flies. I have been, I must tell you this, that there is another side of the coin too. We had a chemist in this village where I'm from, and he was a soldier, not a Jew. And he picked me up from the mud. I was hardly breathing. My half head was already in mud, in a little hole I was through. And he picked me up, and he was not allowed to pick up Jews, let them die. But he picked me up and took my clothes off because I was civilian, you know, and took me in the tent and revived me. Yeah. And of course we talked about it after a lot. And after the war I lived a bit of a reviving in my life, but also very restricted because of my dear mother. I could have jobs in another town. She wouldn't let me go. But if I kosher there, you have to stay here. But that stayed in me. I mean, I'm not religious, but I'm a Yid. You know what I mean? It's something you cannot take away, or you don't want to. But I had relatives who survived the war and married non-Jews and never went to Nebuch Judaism. But one I met in Budapest and I took him Yom Kippur to shul and he was crying. He had already 4 children. They did not know their father was a Jew. Well, this keeps us going, but we just don't give up. And the family life was very, we go back a little bit, you know. Like, my father could not make a living. Had 4 children, and my dear mother had brothers, 3 brothers who were supporting us. We were living in a small house and belonged to a bank, and it was sold. My father went to the bank and said, where shall I live? He said, I tell you what, you are a nice Jew. Offer a little bit more than the buyer, and I still can fix it that you get it. My father said, good, but he didn't have a cent. So he went to my mother's brothers and they bought it for us. They bought for us a house. So, I mean, if you look at the house now, I always visit the gypsies living at now. But those days that was like the Messiah. you know, when the Yid thing in Mashiach he came home in a bag with cash. The train ride was about 2 hours, and he opened the bag, and I saw stars. No, because for us, when we were children, we got a coin. Then when we went to bed, we put it in our mouth so we won't lose it. And then we swallowed it in the middle of the night. Then we were looking for it. The money was, we did get some money now that it was Hanukkah geld was good. We played the trailer and we needed some change for it. And many people remember their childhood with some joy. You know, that I had some good times, I went to holiday with mother. Me, bitter. Anything what happened is bitter. Like in the Cheder, one Malamed was so cruel, beating us, and say I had to be there at 8. And one day I was late. I didn't dare to go to Cheder. I was hanging around in the village in the snow all day, and hungry and all that. Didn't dare go home either. Once I went home really bleeding. I was so beaten up by the Melamed. And I bitterly complained to my father. My father said, what? Yitzchak is a Yid. He wouldn't do it for nothing. If you got beaten, probably you deserved it. Instead of going with me there and tell him off. This I remember very well. But he thought that was the right thing to do. As a religious Jew, you mustn't knock. So, would you turn it off? Well, how? If the German government wanted to destroy Judaism in Europe, they succeeded. Where my grandparents lived, I go to the cemetery, there's not one stone standing. And it's hard to find, it's grown up. There's not a Jew to look after it. But when we lived, there we went back, our 3 brothers, and put this whole cemetery in order. Namely, we put a big gate, proper gate, and fence around it, and took the people who understood it. The stones were erected again, and the ones which were broken, we could cement them together. But there's no Jew there. The last Jewish woman died 2 years ago. She was married 3 times, all the 3 times to non-Jews. There were no Jewish people there. Lucky I came to Australia. I found happiness here. I have a large family, very supportive. So, how could you explain what happened to us? There's no way. Did we deserve? I mean, some even say that they were testing or will to believe in God, that even now we believe out there that what has happened. Okay, but those didn't survive. And the humiliation was unbelievable. You know, when you arrived in a camp, they're shouting at you like cows, to humiliate you, to make you glad you're going to the gas chamber, you know? To make you so low that you are not a human being anymore. Why do you have to beat old ladies and chase them with a stick and kick them and all that? When we went to one of the camps, we went to called Mauthausen, there was a little Yid, a small chap, who was dragging him. So when we went through the gate, the guard came and kicked him in his backside. I'll never get up again. He couldn't get up, he was dragged away. So badly injured and also hungry. I mean, I could see they were so devoted to the idea to destroy Judaism in Europe. Why did they torture us? If you want to kill us, kill us, but you have to torture us? And that is something. But there is a philosophy now that everybody wants to kill, and they were rewarded to kill, so they enjoyed it. But this is not my idea of living. Everybody has the right to live. And funnily now, there's so many things I don't remember. When you get older, you do forget it. I was at one time an apprentice as a glazier. So I trained, so I came late. And my father wasn't so late, but he was already home from shul. So I trained, so I came late. And my father wasn't so late, but he was already home from shul. He didn't beat me because my mother wouldn't let him, but he was very, very upset. But then I said this to somebody. He wasn't upset because of that. He was upset, what will the rabbi say next morning? Where was I last night? I must have been late, so I couldn't come. This belief that when we pray, it was said by God, which is not true. I mean, people who wrote it, well-meaning, clever people, but God didn't tell them. It was their idea. How do we know that God wants to be praised all the time? Baruch Hashem this, Baruch Hashem that. How do we know that? That is our imagination, which keeps us what we are. But we saw that every word was told by God right now. Some said that these people dreamt it. God told them in their dream, and they woke up, they wrote it down. If you believe it, you are lucky. What was the other thing did I tell you the story about a Yid who goes to the doctor, and he said, and the doctor examines, he has a cough, and the doctor sends him for an X-ray. After the X-ray, he calls him and he said, good news. And the good news is your lung is clear. That is very good news. And the patient said, doctor, what is the bad news? I can't tell. So serious, I'm not able to tell. I don't know what kind of words to use. But the doctor insists, now you tell me now. I said, okay, I'll tell you. The X-ray shows that your thesis is porcelain. You know what porcelain is? Not a good joke. Not a good joke. Well, you can't please everyone, can you? So, I thought that you are going to ask me questions. But you said that me talk, this is very difficult.
You're finding it difficult?
Yeah, I find it difficult too. You know, when I came to Australia, then I started to live normal Jewish life, but only because of my mother. My mother was a real tzaddik, if you know what that is. There was one butcher shop, you know, and the cross is sold kosher chicken. The chicken cost so much it took me a whole week to work for it. Very low wages and very high rent. But on the end, it passed, you shouldn't want the past. The future, the present, it counts. I'm a bit of a philosopher, but that's nothing. That's just the way I feel. And In Australia, I arrived, it was in September. Just before the Sharon, I went to the Great Synagogue. That was the only shul I heard about. They wouldn't let me, they didn't have a ticket. A week before that I arrived to Australia, I didn't have a ticket. Couldn't pay, I wouldn't have been able to pay for a ticket. But where have you heard anything like it? So I went home. And I was davening at home. And you can imagine when I saw the first American soldier liberated. It is not a joke. I was kissing his boots. And then they took us in a tent and DDT this all over because you couldn't see my skin was dark from various little animals, you know. And the chap got to me, so there was Herzog to me, she was a Jew. I thought I was in heaven. The Jewish American soldier. And then they put us a bit on our feet, and then we walked home. 3 months to get home. There were times when we got on a train, but immediately at a station or two we went there, they put down, hey, no ticket. We didn't know a thing like that. We didn't have the degrading of a human being to be under circumstances like that, that you have no food today, you won't have any tomorrow. All your way is to be liberated. I mean, the Americans went to France, landed in France, it was June 44. It took them a year to come here. We have heard on the, you know, the fighting and all that, but it wasn't easy going either. The madmen were fighting and losing battle. And I hear, it was also with their children. And they had no more soldiers from school, they took children gave them a rifle. But this is the madness of the war. But that was a very mad one. Well, I think that I will only forget it when I close my eyes for good. It's with me all the time. I still have nightmares, but not so much in the war, but nightmares. Up till about 5 years back, I was chased over the trenches and all that. Once we were going from one camp to another on foot, without food. And once there was a narrow pass between two mountains, and they put 3 tanks across and left us little passage to go through like this. And they stood on those tanks and were beating us. I got one, you want to see the wound I had? And then that was about 4 months before liberation. Then the wound didn't heal and my shirt stuck to the wound. And I never took it off, I couldn't take it off. Then an American doctor, an army doctor, cut it out and I put some solution on it and tremendous pain. But here I am. My toes were frozen, the little bone was sticking out from the tooth maker. And normally people would die if it's not attended to. But as I was starting to eat, my hair started to grow. And we were like animals, we couldn't. And also I was thinking a lot about my parents, but I dismissed the idea. You know, more torture and all that. You know, I was hoping that nothing happened to them. But my mother survived in Christian people, but my father was killed. So, but Australia is a good country. We came to the right place in that sense that you could recover. Because here we don't have to be worried that And as a child, when I came from school, the boys and children were waiting for us and beating us. And there was nowhere to go to complain. Yeah, the idea, the Jewish idea is this, well, we have to learn to live with Soros because we are in Galut. What kind of idea is that? But of course, when you know more about it, you think that this is all made up for the purpose to survive. You know, the verse was Christmas. I mean, as children were at home, we really had very little to eat. I'm not saying we didn't have anything. My dear mother cooked a caravasi soup. Some caravasi with a hot water, and little bits of bread in it. Lunch and dinner. And when I passed by the window of a neighbor at Christmas evening, they were steaming. But the food. But when they brought the pig in on the table, I saw it with an apple in its mouth. I was so disgusted that I thought I'd rather go hungry than to eat that. We were very jealous. I mean, all those children under the Christmas tree were playing with toys they just received, and we were lucky to get for us a shirt. Yeah. But also I actually was a beggar for food, because we went to school, the Talmud Torah, and every day, like Monday shorts, Tuesday greens, they gave us, every week we went to the same place. That's how they supported the poor students. They gave us, but summer, they went on holidays. My Wednesday is gone, and so did Thursday. I had nothing to do. You see, they didn't say, okay, to the neighbors, give this poor bastard something to eat. Yeah, he said, now for 6 years we're going away, come back that. And that was actually begging for food. There were children who had a bit more, and others didn't, a little bit, I hadn't eaten all day anything. Actually, many children in those days got TB from undernourishment. I don't know if it's possible, that what I'm saying, medically, but that's what we taught to believe, that if you don't eat, don't nourish your body, you get TB. Possibly you get it, it's an infectious disease, but you get it because you haven't got any strength to resent it. And when I had the typhoid, my mother came to visit, but he couldn't come into the room where we were, through the window, but high window, and she got a box, like a fruit box, stood there, looked at me and crying. For a 12-year-old girl. They had no child psychology at all, these people. They did not, but they were brought up the same. Actually, I'll go back that far, that at the First World War, in that village where my mother grew up, there were prisoners of war, Russians, because they were on the German side, Andros and Monarch. And there was a Jewish fellow who wanted my mother to marry and take away to Russia. Her father said, no. My daughter stays here. Everything would have been different, wouldn't it? I wonder how would have been in Hungary. Yeah, in Hungary we had my dear mother had a sister, and they had a non-Jewish family next door, very good friend. And I went, my mother sent them, at least get the candlesticks, candelabra, or what you call it, for Friday night, what my sister used to do. So I went there. And I went there by train. I tell you about it, the trip. And I knocked on the door. I told her who I am, and I said, "Look, that is Auntie Olga." She said, "My mother." He said, "No, I don't give it. When she comes back, it's hers. I'll give it, knowing that what happened in Auschwitz." even that. So I went on a train from where we were to the other place, and the train stopped. And those days, Russian soldiers were taking home prisoners of war Germans. But say 3 or 4 guards were given 1,000 soldiers, 1,000 prisoners of war, and some escaped. They kept counting them, and they were shot. They had to go back to Russia shot. So that means can't you do your job properly? So they picked people up on the street, quite innocent people, and people, those they didn't know why, but they took them. Anyway, that train where I was traveling stopped at the camp and picked about 10 people up. They were short 10 men. So when they arrived in the camp in Russia, they have their number. And I was desperate. What will my dear mother say when she finds out I'm taken to Siberia? So as we were passing, that one carriage was the office for them, and they were officers. And I jumped up and was begging. But he didn't speak the language I spoke. And I was holding his high boots like that and showing him that I came from Mouthhausen and couldn't read. So I started to cry. And I spoke Yiddish to him, and he was a Yid. And he said to me, let them go and do they go back. But in the meantime, when I was taken away, there was a girl next to me in the train, and I gave her an address to tell my mother what happened. So she saw me coming back, we were all very happy, but she didn't give me back the address. And when I was back in Budapest, then she came and wanted to marry me. Happy ending. That's all my mother would know, that she was honestly very devoted and selfless. But all mothers are selfless, not all. But because my father didn't come home, the sons were very precious. You understand? So when I came to Australia, I met a woman who was 6 years older than me. But I was so lonely. I mean, I was with my mother, her and me. But that's not enough for a 27-year-old young man. And the circumstances too complicated. And I was taking her out. And one day she said, we should get married. She had 2 children, previous marriage. She was a young widow. And I said to her that I only earn so much, very little. Then she said, we'll work it out. So we went to a rabbi, and that lady said to the rabbi that my mother would be against it because she's not religious. And the rabbi said, no, I don't want anybody to start crying in front of the chuppah. So he suggested that we shouldn't tell my mother. I have not forgiven myself for this, and I agreed. Because I was so vulnerable, influential. People could influence me. Then I worked for charities, and I was struggling to make a living myself. So my mother came home, she also working, and I was gone. Can you imagine it? How can I be so cruel and stupid? I mean, I should have had enough strength to say, no, I have to ask her mother, I have to tell her. No, I was forbidden to tell her. But that marriage lasted 52 years. She died 3 years ago. Leonie is my lady friend. Have you met her?
We met when you were down looking.
She's also with her husband was well known in the Jewish community. So here we go. I mean, the life had no, and time didn't care. We were going from one point to the other in Poland, in huge snow. Then, day and night, and one had to sleep of three. We called it troika, three. In the middle slept, and the two were dragging him. 5 or 10 minutes, that's all. And then kept changing. That's how they sleep. We arrived in one spot. There was nothing to do. They sent us back where we come from. I mean, what kind of management is this? But they got away with it. When people are asking me now to donate for charities in Africa and Malaysia, who helped us? Nobody cared. I knew of a very famous opera singer called Joseph Smith, and he escaped to Switzerland and then returned to Germany, to Vienna, and he got killed. He was already in a safe place. But I used to go to Switzerland on business, and they say, well, what can the guards do, the guards? If they catch Zelensky, they have to return. He was not a Swiss. You know, they didn't look at it that way. But he was a bloody human being, human gross. But when Jews suffer, now has changed. But there was no reforms. No. They accused us, as you know, for many things we couldn't dream of. They had to dream of. Okay, my darling, I'm exhausted now.
You look exhausted.